Patrick just looking for love, looking for support from his dad. Jose just never gives anything in return. He always taking things from Patrick.
Now, it may only be their first day. In fact, it may only be their first few hours in Brazil. But already, Patrick's dad has absolutely no qualms in making demands of his son. So, is this fatherly love, or is there something more sinister going on? And more to the point, why the doesn't Patrick ever say no?
The door needs to be done.
It's not time to do walls.
3 days only. We do everything.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to help you tomorrow, but I'll try to help you while we're here with stuff.
Wow, what a vacation this is gearing up to be. Patrick's dad expects him to take 3 days out of his short vacation to do chores for him. Is this really what you do when you haven't seen your son for 2 years? Well, before we dive into that, let's rewind to the start. So, the last we saw the couple, they'd just arrived in Brazil and Thais had put off meeting up with her dad so that they could all relax and rest up after a long day's travelling. But little did she know that her husband had invited his dad round behind her back.
Good to see you. How are you?
Good.
Hey, I bought some paint to paint the apartment.
Paint the apartment?
Yeah, this whole place is gonna be painted.
Is it me, or does this feel like a bit of an odd way to start a conversation after not seeing each other for 2 years? Hi son, paint my entire apartment. Yeah, it's weird. But Patrick doesn't even mention it. It's very clear that he has a soft spot for all of his family. Now, his dad, Jose, shuffles in and greets Thais, and then meets his granddaughter, Alice, for the very first time.
Olha sua! Ela tá olhando assim, estranhando.
Oi, Beauty.
He's quite emotional as he holds up baby Alice, and he says the baby looks a lot like Patrick. This is supposed to be a very special moment. It's his first time meeting his granddaughter. But sadly, the problem is there's some underlying feelings of tension in the air. You see, Thais is annoyed at Patrick. She's pissed off that he didn't think to inform her that his dad was coming around.
I didn't tell Thais that my dad was coming because I just didn't want to give her an opportunity to say no. I'd rather ask for forgiveness than permission.
This is such a frustrating quality in Patrick, isn't it? He and Thais are meant to be in this together. They're meant to be a team. But by not telling her so many important things that stand to directly impact her, he's forcing her into feeling like an outsider. I think Patrick wants to avoid conflict so badly that he finds it easier just to lie to his wife. We saw it when he couldn't say no to John about joining them in Brazil. And that seems to be a trait because he can't seem to say no to his dad either.
My dad and I have a complicated relationship. When him and my mom got divorced when I was about 7 years old, we moved across the country, and so I barely got to see him.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense now. Now, Patrick tells us that for most of his childhood, his dad wasn't in the picture. He's only relatively recently reconnected with his dad as an adult, only when his dad retired and moved back to Brazil. He says that his dad is now a very important part of his life, and remember that because that becomes important shortly. But it's interesting how missing out having his dad in his life when he was younger might now explain why he's so desperate to win his dad's approval.
So I need you to do a lot of stuff tomorrow. Clean the walls first, you know. We can do some paint over here.
That doesn't sound like fun.
Now, this trip is about seeing family and mending relationships. It's not about doing chores. What's the big rush about painting these walls? Like, from what we can see, and granted it is quite limited, but from what we can see, the apartment isn't obviously in need of a renovation. It looks nice, it's perfectly presentable, and remember, this is meant to be Thais and Patrick's apartment. They're the ones paying the rent. So it just strikes me as a bit odd. It's a bit unnecessary. It doesn't seem urgent enough for Patrick to have to drop everything and spend a day or two of his vacation doing odd jobs his dad has tasked him with.
The door needs to be done.
It's not time to do walls.
3 days only. We do everything.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to help you tomorrow, but I'll try to help you while we're here with stuff.
No, Patrick, say it straight. Tell your dad you don't have time to help tomorrow. Tomorrow, you're meant to be meeting your father-in-law. That, my friend, is going to be a very long, tough day of grovelling for you. Definitely not the time to start painting. And it's clear that Thais is already losing patience at all of these requests.
He always asks for money earlier, and also he raised the rent 500 reais all the time. It's like $100 in the US.
Thais claims that what Jose is doing isn't normal. It's not normal to raise the rent so much in Brazil, she says. He's always asking us to fix things, to pay for things in the apartment. But he's the owner, she says. It should be his responsibility. We're the ones paying rent. And I guess, well, technically by the letter of the law, she may be correct. Patrick doesn't see it that way. He sees it as his responsibility to help out his dad.
He's asking Patrick because, he's his son. I don't think Zé will ask, if it was another person.
I have no problem helping out my dad.
Yeah, she's right. He's asking these things because Patrick's his son. But is that a bad thing, Thais? So far, from what we've seen, Patrick's dad has been very sweet, if not a little demanding. When Patrick tells him he doesn't have time to help him paint tomorrow, he says it's okay, he doesn't have a problem with that. It's almost as if he wants to paint the house with his son, like some kind of bonding activity. And that's kind of the way that Patrick sees it too. But Thais doesn't see it that way.
I think Patrick just looking for love, looking for support from his dad. Jose just never gives anything in return. He always taking things from Patrick.
Thais knows Jose, and she knows him quite well by now, and she's convinced that he's taking advantage of Patrick. Now, from what we've seen, I'd say the jury's out on that. I'm not sure she's necessarily correct with that. But inevitably, time will tell. And yeah, while immediately demanding chores might seem a bit unreasonable, ultimately, it's Patrick's responsibility. It's up to him to draw the line in the sand and set whatever boundaries he's comfortable with. But that doesn't mean he can completely disregard Thais either.
Get a list of the stuff I need to give you.
A list?
Yeah.
I kind of came here more on vacation, but I can help.
A list? This is meant to be a vacation. They're only in Brazil for 2 weeks. They've got things to do. Has Patrick not told his dad the reason they're there? Well, as his dad eventually heads off, Thais can now freely speak to her husband about what's just happened. She's really not happy with Patrick, but she's also not happy that Jose just showed up with paint in hand.
And coming with a painting thing?
He just brought it to be nice.
To be nice, ask you to paint? It's the first time he saw you, and then after 2 years.
You can definitely see Patrick making excuses for his dad's behaviour. He brought it to be nice. What, Patrick, how did you come up with that one? He tries to say that his dad just likes to get things done when they need to be done. But if that were really the case, Patrick, surely he'd have painted the house before you arrived. I mean, he is retired. He does have free time on his hands.
Why he's asking you to do things? Why he cannot have someone to do things for him?
Because he doesn't have money.
He does have money now.
No, he doesn't have money.
It's interesting to see that as Patrick explains his dad's financial situation isn't ideal, Thais seems genuinely surprised by that fact. She's taken aback to learn that. and you can only assume that Patrick hasn't explained it to her before. But I also suspect she doesn't necessarily believe Patrick. She's convinced that Jose is taking advantage of Patrick. Remember earlier when Patrick said that he and his dad had a very close relationship? Well, Thais says it might not actually be as close as Patrick implied.
Now, he's a big part of my life, and I'm really happy just because having a father was something I was missing as I was growing up.
I don't see they talking much. I just see when he talks to Patrick, it's just when he charged for the apartment. It's not just about the apartment,
Look, every father-child relationship is different. I don't really think she has any leg to stand on. She's not one to judge their relationship. Remember, she said that she's close to her dad too, but then ran off and got married in secret. Lots of people don't understand that, in exactly the same way that lots of people might not understand Patrick and his dad's relationship. But with that being said, it is definitely something to keep an eye on as to whether Patrick is confusing helping his dad out financially with he and his dad being close. Is Patrick's dad taking advantage? Thais definitely thinks he is. She reminds Patrick that in addition to paying rent, in addition to other maintenance costs, sometimes his dad also just straight up asks for extra money. But the thing is, Patrick won't hear a bad word said against his dad.
I mean, it's my dad.
I know.
And I'd rather, this apartment's great for us. We don't need
But
any
it's not
more.
our apartment.
Well, you could talk to him. It's supposed to be ours one day.
I don't know about that, Amal.
Look, if the apartment really is getting passed down to Thais and Patrick, then maybe investing in the apartment makes a little more sense, especially if his dad doesn't have the financial resources. But the way that Patrick says it's supposed to be ours one day, added to the fact that Jose does have other kids as well, means that might not be the case. Either way, for right now, Patrick doesn't want to hear criticism. He's adamant that he will continue to help his dad whatever he needs, and if Thais doesn't agree, then he's just gonna keep hiding it from her.
My dad isn't that well off. So the fact that I get to help my dad out and get to spend time with him, it's really important to me. I haven't seen my dad in almost 2 years, just like she hasn't seen her dad.
And sure, that might be the case, but look, put aside Patrick's relationship with his dad, and likewise put aside Thais's relationship with her dad. I think the real issue we've uncovered so far this season is Patrick and Thais's lack of communication. There seems to be a reluctance, particularly on Patrick's side, to have open, honest conversations. That, I'd suggest, is probably a bigger issue than both of their daddy issues.